Goblin Giant, a card so hated but so prominent in the current meta that players have had to abandon their favorite strategies just to counter this card in decks inspired by it. But it wasn't always like this, so how did we get here? This all started back in August of 2018, when Clash Royale teased the Goblin Giant. Their player base was shocked, as this was the first unit to target buildings and units separately. On top of that, they were adding a new giant to the already giant-heavy meta. Supercell, when announcing the Goblin Giant, said they wanted it to replace Giant in most decks, and before it was released, the community was very excited. However, exactly a month later, in September, the Goblin Giant was in the game, and besides one deck in particular being used a little bit, Goblin Giant was hated in a huge disappointment to the community. Unlike its counterparts, the Giant moved fast and had less HP, which, although sounds balanced, made it extremely hard to build big pushes, which was the entire meta back then. This made the Goblin Giant unable to fit nicely into Giant decks, as Supercell would have hoped. And after years of balance changing, Goblin Giant rarely found its way into the meta and was seen as an unrevivable card. That is, until Season 72 of Clash Royale was released. This season released the Inferno Dragon Evolution. This card carried its damage amplification as it swapped targets, making it extremely hard to make big pushes. Towards the end of this rather dull season, with the only feature being the removal of the season shop, a new deck had arisen in the meta, and it was none other than Goblin Giant Pekka. Regardless, it was a step in the wrong direction for the meta. In August 2025, exactly 6 years after the announcement of Goblin Giant, a new season released with the biggest rework in Clash Royale history, to the Furnace. This rework turned the once building unit into a unit which worked like a witch, but for fire spirits. This card ruined the meta, with a 95% use rate in the top 200, and even today you still find it in a few decks. But this forced a majority of bait players underground and paved a way for the current Beatdown meta. The stage was set, and with there finally being a moment for bait to rule, many decks rose and many decks fell. But one deck was able to rise above the others during this season. Goblin Giant Pekka. No one knew how to deal with this combo, as no one had really seen anything like this too prominent in the meta, but at this point, we were too far in, and the combination between the super fast Goblin Giant and the super strong Pekka, along with the Goblin Machine, was just an unstoppable force no one could truly ever deal with. Another leading reason to this card being overused, to say the least, is due to the fact that Supercell, over the last previous months, had tried to nerf bait as it was over-dominant in the meta. So, to overcompensate, they released and buffed beatdown cards such as Furnace, Spirit Empress, and assorted buffs to the Prince, Goblin Giant, and others. Goblin Giant stood out, however, mainly because of its speed and the fact that when paired with the Furnace, Goblin Machine, and Pekka, it could pave a clear path, and its speed could carry it to the tower with little resistance. As this deck surfaced, other decks came up to counter it, making the once quick cycle meta turn into a Recruits Goblin Giant Golem meta. But this shows true today, and slowly, the Goblin Giant is continuing to getting nerfs. But this is how Goblin Giant came to power, and although this might be sad to hear, Goblin Giant is still very popular and won't be going anywhere anytime soon. But learn to adapt. I know this meta might be frustrating right now, but don't worry, as metas always change. And the real thing to get out of them is the skills you learn through these metas. Thank you guys for watching. I'm Chameleon. Catch you guys on the flip side.